फ्रेंड्स, यूट्यूब चैनल सोशो क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम इस वीडियो में इकोनॉमिक्स के बीए थर्ड सेमेस्टर के मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं। नेम ऑफ द पेपर इज़ पब्लिक फाइनेंस एंड इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स। मैक्सिमम मार्क्स इसके 90 हैं। टाइम 3 घंटे है। सबसे पहले शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस होंगे, जैसे आपका सिलेबस है उसी तरह से ये क्वेश्चंस बनाए गए हैं और बाकी सारे सब्जेक्ट्स के वीडियो भी यहीं पे मिल जाएंगे, मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस के, सिलेबस के, और अलग अलग मीडियम में भी बनाए जा रहे हैं, हिंदी और पंजाबी मीडियम में। वहाँ से भी आप अपने पेपर की तैयारी कर सकते हो अकॉर्डिंग योर मीडियम। सबसे पहले शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस ये इस तरह से हैं। व्हाट आर द 2 ऑब्जेक्टिव्स ऑफ द एवेल्युएशन ऑफ करेंसी? एंड नेक्स्ट इज़ व्हाट इज़ मीन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट बजट? And then give 4 examples of direct taxes. And next is what is meant by customs duties, it is direct or indirect tax. And then what are the factors determined to share tax burden between seller and buyer? And then Americans tax paying capacity is higher than Indian, what is the concept involved in this statement? And then India borrowed by 1000 crores from World Bank. For repayment, India borrowed again 1000 rupees crores. What is the concept involved in this statement? And then why defect financing causes inflation? And next is define international economics. And then America is the capital of abundant nation. India is the labor abundant nation. What are the 2 techniques for both the nations can adopt to produce and export goods? And next is globalization is good to increase free trade, our protective trade. And then what is the main objectives of IMF? And next question is what is meant by canon of sanction in public expenditure? And then define public finance and private finance. And then what is meant by tax impact? And then what is meant by absolute taxable capacity? And then what is meant by debt trap? And then why defect finance generally inflationary? And next what is meant by net barter terms of trade? And next is define dumping. And then what is meant by labor intensive techniques? And next is what is meant by balance of trade? And then give 2 examples of transfer payments in balance of payments accounts. And then define gold standard. And next is what is meant by canon of economy in taxation. And next is what is mean by regressive public expenditure. And then what is meant by progressive taxation. And then what is mean by terms trade question mark इसके साथ लगाना था, ये टाइप हो गया. And then what is meant by protective trade. And then give 2 examples for visible items in balance of payments. And next is what is meant by depreciation of exchange, depreciation in exchange rate of a currency. And then name the 2 Button Wood twins. And next is any 2 assumptions of Adam Smith trade theory. And next is defective financing. And next is the determinants of international trade. And then 4 main canons public expenditure. And then commodity terms of trade. And next question fixed exchange rate. And then objectives of World Bank. And next features of balance of payments. And then basis of Orleans theory. And then public finance. Next is features of a tax. And then impact of taxation. And then value added tax. And next is defect and love semen and flexible exchange rate. And then capital account, real burden of debt, functions of IMF. And next is VAT. And then BOT and SDR, 5 resources of public debt. And next is 2-factor TOT. And then unfounded debt. And next is absolute and relative taxable capacity. And next question is free trade versus protection. And then mention the failures of IBRD. And next is theory of trade. And then define the concept of Ohlin, HO. And next is Weisman-Peacock's law. And then public versus private finance. And next is difference between BOT and BOP. And then 4 ways of redemption of public debt. And then relative versus absolute difference in कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन। ये थे शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस। स्टूडेंट्स, इन क्वेश्चंस को अच्छी तरह से तैयार कर लेना। इसके बाद लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन जब करोगे उसमें से भी शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस बन जाएंगे, तो आपकी तैयारी सफिशेंट हो जाएगी। और लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन 18 मार्क्स का आपका एक क्वेश्चन होगा। हर एक यूनिट में से 2 लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन पूछे जाएंगे। ये लॉन्ग क्वेश्चंस भी अच्छे से प्रिपेयर कर लेना, इसी में से पेपर आएगा। क्वेश्चन मोल्ड करके ज़रूर डाले जा सकते हैं, इसलिए उसको आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि इसका आंसर हमने कैसे लिखना है। तो यूनिट फर्स्ट में है एक्सप्लेन द नॉर्मेटिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर, एंड देन व्हाट इज मीन्ड बाय पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर, डिस्कस द कॉजेज ऑफ इट्स ग्रोथ इन मॉडर्न टाइम्स, and then what is meant by public expenditure, discuss the causes of increase in public expenditure in recent years or in modern times, and then what is meant by public expenditure, give reasons for the growth of continuous increases in public expenditure in India, and then canons of public expenditure, discuss in detail the principle of maximum social advantage. And next question is define tax, explain the main characteristics of a good taxation system. And next question is what do you mean by public finance, discuss in detail the importance of public finance. And next is what is public finance, explain its scope and importance. And then briefly explain the nature and scope of public finance. And next question is what are the characteristics of good tax pay system. And next question is what is tax, explain the characteristics of a good tax system. And then explain briefly canons of taxation in an underdeveloped country. And then explain the main canons of taxation. And next question, explain and illustrate the principle of maximum social advantage, what significance. And next, explain the principle of maximum social advantage. And then explain Dalton's principle of maximum social advantage, what is its significance. ये यूनिट फर्स्ट था। अब है यूनिट सेकंड के लॉन्ग क्वेश्चंस। इसमें फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है डिस्कस द डिमांड एंड सप्लाई थ्योरी ऑफ इंसिडेंस ऑफ टैक्सेशन, एंड देन एक्सप्लेन द एब्सोल्यूट एंड रिलेटिव टैक्सेबल कैपेसिटी, and then what do you mean by taxable capacity, what factors determine the taxable capacity of a country, and then define taxable capacity factors affecting taxable capacity of a country like India, and then what is the difference between impact and incidence of taxation, discuss the modern theory of incidence of taxation. And next is what are the factors determine taxable capacity, and then what is meant by incidence of tax, explain the factors which influence incidence and shifting of taxation. And next question, how do you think the public debt is a burden, explain. And then types of public debt, methods of redemption of public debt, and then explain the methods of debt redemption. And next question, discuss the role of public debt in a developing country, and then explain defect financing, how for defect financing help the country like India for its development. And then what is meant by defect financing, discuss its role in the economic development of a country like India. And then what is defect financing, what are the objectives and limitation of defect financing. And unit third जिसमें है long questions sorry. Next question है discuss classical theory of international trade, and next discuss the principle of reciprocal demand in the theory of international trade. And next question, critically examine Heckscher-Ohlin theory of international trade, and then explain the various terms of trade with reference to current economic situation. And next discuss in detail theory of reciprocal demand, and then explain the offer curve, and then impact of WTO on less developed countries. And next explain the role of WTO in the context of solving trade related problems of less developed nations, and then how has the WTO functioned recently, and then what do you understand by World Trade Organization, discuss its implications for developing countries with special reference to India. And then what is foreign trade policy, what factors must be considered to formulate it. And then critically examine theory of comparative costs of international trade, and then what is meant by free trade, what are the advantages and disadvantages of free trade. and then critically examine the theory of comparative cost of international trade, and next is explain the modern theory of international trade, and then briefly explain free trade versus protection। ये यूनिट 3 के क्वेश्चन थे। अब है 4th यूनिट, जिसमें फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है ऑन व्हाट फैक्टर्स डज द बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट्स डिपेंड, and then explain the causes of defect in balance of payments account and suggest measures to reduce the defect in balance of payments। And next question, indicate the chief features of IMF, has its membership been beneficial to India? And next question, discuss in detail the working of IMF and also discuss its achievement, and then discuss in detail the functions and achievements of IMF, and next explain the objectives and achievements of the IMF, and then explain the factors that are responsible for fluctuations in the rate of exchange. Are there any limits to such fluctuations? And next is discuss the objective, achievements and failures of the IBRD. And next discuss the causes of an adverse balance of payment, suggest methods to control it, and then what is meant by balance of payments, analyze the causes of adverse balance of payments, how is it corrected, and then what are the causes for adverse balance of payments, how can it be corrected, and then how balance of payments differ from the balance of trade, and next discuss the purchasing power parity theory of rate of exchange, and then what do you mean by rate of exchange, how is it determined by purchasing power parity theory, and next is what do you mean by rate of exchange, how is it determined by purchasing power parity theory। स्टूडेंट्स, ये थे लॉन्ग क्वेश्चंस और शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस। बाकी सारे सब्जेक्ट्स के भी मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस यहीं पे मिल जाएंगे। आपकी तैयारी कैसी चल रही है ज़रूर बताना, और कोई सजेशन हो वो भी आप कमेंट बॉक्स में कमेंट कर सकती हो, और बाकी के लिंक आपको प्लेलिस्ट के यहीं डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में मिल जाएंगे। थैंक यू सो मच। आपका पेपर कैसा होता है ये भी बताना, कितने मार्क्स आते हैं। थैंक यू। मिलते हैं हम अपने अगले वीडियो में।